Okay, so welcome to our second episode of MageHub podcast, MageCast. I don't know. I started changing the name because I was trying to game the YouTube algorithm, and whenever YouTube was like, "No one's clicking this video. Here's things you can try," and I was like, "Oh well, let's start trying these." Um, yeah, I'm ToeGrinder. I'm the developer of MageHub. You probably have seen me in the Alter Time Discord. I play Mage, and I am the GM and raid leader of the Guild Mist on Taramil EU. DGen, want to introduce yourself?
Yep, I'm DGen. I'm a raider and bound on Zul'jin. I'm a staff member and theory crafter for the Alter Time Discord, mostly dabbling in fire. And I also contribute to Toe's MageHub.
Forum?
All those same things, just Divergence on Area 52, and I'm the Arcane Guide Writer for Wowhead as well.
Cool. Okay, so we were going to talk about Frost and the Frost trees, basically what we did last week, but for Frost. But then Blizzard decided to rework Fire last minute, so I guess we'll try and do a shorter episode talking about that. So I was thinking we just start with the Fire tree and go down, not place the conversation too much, just kind of see where it goes, but use that as a sort of guiding point. So if anyone hasn't seen it, the Fire tree has been reworked. You can go on Wowhead. They have the alpha talent calculator, and you can play about with the new tree. So I'll just try and build something while we're going down here. So to start off, you've got your Fire Blast and your Phoenix Flames at the start, slightly different from live. Now I have this thing that reduces the Fire Blast cooldown by 2 seconds. I don't know if it's a tooltip issue, but it says it has a proc chance. Has anyone tested this on alpha?
That's how Fervent works on live. It's a proc chance based on your ignite ticking, I believe.
Yeah, but it says that it's ignite damage, it says it's ignite damage on live. But
Yeah,
this just says,
so I think it's just a tooltip error.
Yeah,
That would be my guess as well.
I think it's now just a flat 2-second reduction.
yeah. So tooltip issue is almost saying so. Yeah, so this is just 2-second reduction. This is pretty good, actually. I was looking. So Fire Blast is a 12-second base CD now. I'm not sure if anything else we have reduces it.
It's just a hasted GCD reduction.
Yeah, so mine hasted is down to 7.1 seconds on live. So Fire Blast is, I know we're sort of near the end of the expansion, season 3, but your Fire Blast is going to get down to a really low cooldown. You could be lower than 6 seconds, I think, with this talent, which is, again, I'm not sure how I feel about it. It's probably pretty fun to play, but it might take away some of that sort of resource management we've talked about before, but it'll certainly be welcome early on in the expansion.
The weird part here, though, is so we're in the first gate still, and it's a 10-point gate, or 10 talents in the first gate, and it takes 9 to get past it. So you're kind of hard locked to pretty much everything in this area, except for 1 point, which for single target would probably be lit fuse, which means we're going to be playing Firestarter in pretty much every raid build, I think.
Yeah, you drop 2 talents. You can take everything except 2. Yeah, and that's something I complained about before. I always thought that Firestarter and Searing Touch should be in places where there's competitive other options, because you don't always want to play Firestarter on Fyrakk, for example. The first phase DPS doesn't matter, so I don't want to play Firestarter. But I don't really like this. You have to take this kind of talent. But yeah, this row, we've got Call of the Sun King has moved to here. So Phoenix Flames deals 15% increased damage and gains 1 additional charge. And then we have Scorch. So the Phoenix Flame one's an interesting one. I was quite critical of where the Phoenix Flames talents were in the live tree, because to me, Phoenix Flames is such a core spell, and you want your core spell talents early in the tree in those forced things. To me, it makes more sense for Firestarter to be down where Alexstrasza's Fury is, for example, and Alexstrasza's Fury to be up here. Do you have any thoughts on anything like that, Porum?
Alternatively, I definitely think Phoenix Flames could have been one of those things where it kind of shows up mid-tree and has talents later in the tree that specialize it, because Phoenix Flames hasn't really always been a core thing for Fire, right? and I'm not like a huge fan of it, especially after Shadowlands when they introduced the weird hot streak delay on it, you know. Um, but it definitely, like you said, it makes more sense that if it's going to be a core spell, if it's going to be higher in the tree like it is today, that it, you know, the investments to it become kind of automatic, right? Like they are for Fire Blast.
Yeah. I didn't really even consider like Phoenix Flames being. I always thought like splitting the talents is bad, but I never really considered like, oh, move Phoenix Flames further down than move the supporting talents further up. That's interesting. And I also, until you said that, I completely forgot that we played BFA without Phoenix Flames.
Mm-hmm. And it was there the whole time, right? It was a talent brought over from the Legion artifact, and yeah, we just didn't even touch it. And honestly, BFA, for me at least, I love BFA Fire. I thought it was a lot of fun, especially in Eternal Palace, like right before things got out of hand with corruption. Right, there was still some skill expression with the Fire Blast Azerite talent or trait rather.
Yeah,
Blaster Master.
Yeah, Blaster Master.
All right, yeah, that one. Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah. In Uldir before you had like infinite fire blasts. Yeah.
I actually think I would change it up a little bit more. I would swap where Combustion and Firestarter is, because Combustion is like that core fire identity, and I think you should be getting that pretty early. So locking that behind the second gate, especially for like new mages that are leveling up and trying to like learn the class, learning Combustion is like a really, really core concept for that. I think moving that up and like swapping where Firestarter is would A, open up a lot of pathing options, and B, just get people into that fire mage experience a lot sooner.
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm thinking here, so because you have the extra combustion talent, so you could put like combustion where Firestarter is, the like improved combustion where combustion is, and then like Firestarter where improved combustion is, or something like that.
Something along those lines.
Yeah, no, I think that would be a good idea. Because placement of Firestarter is odd. It's not something you always want.
Yeah, I've always liked the old talent system trade off of you either get the execute or the, you know, I get, what would you call an early execute?
Reverse execute. What I've always called it.
Yeah.
Odd name.
I always liked that decision there, right, for fire. So like fights like Sludge Fist come up, right, where like you wanted to get the extra crits early on so that you could get your reset in time for the 1 minute or the like 54-second pillar, right?
Yeah.
So I like that identity there for fire. And generally speaking, I don't really care for Firestarter most of the time either. And even when it does come up on fights like Odin or something like that, it feels really good, but it also just kind of cheapens the gameplay in those fights too. Like you kind of lose everything else fire, and you're just spamming instants the whole time.
One thing interesting though, with us losing Double Lust, but we're retaining this Firestarter. Everyone knows like the Firestarter opener that we have, and that really relies on us just having so much haste in our opener. With us playing Firestarter, if we do a delayed combustion with the Firestarter opener, we'll build up those mana addiction stacks before our combustion. So when we go into our combustion, we're already juiced up, and we'll have maybe another orb from Sun Fury or something to go into it with. So it could have some interesting interactions there. But I also really hate Firestarter, and I would be happy to see it go.
Yeah, I think another thing about the Firestarter opener without Temporal Warp is like maintaining Blaster Master through Firestarter into combustion while still having enough Fire Blast for combustion is like really annoying without a Double Lust.
And
they've got a new talent for that. Don't worry.
I want to say it was
spoilers.
I want to say it was Lanfear and maybe Exo that cooked up our current Firestarter deal, which uses that shifting power before any of your buttons are pressed, which in my opinion feels absolutely awful. But you're doing that to like get those Fire Blast charges back. I hope that goes in the past.
That's also dependent on Double Lust because like you spend so much time in combustion afterwards that like shifting power is like almost back anyway. Like you're basically in combustion until Lust ends. It's part of what makes that worth. So that'll probably be even less worth without Temporal Warp. Praying anyway. Okay, on the left hand side here we have Scorch. So Scorch Execute is now built into Scorch, along with Scorch movement speed. They just seem to be condensing Scorch talents. I'm really not sure how I feel about Scorch Execute. It feels like really weak. I don't know. Like, if we're going to have an Execute, I'd like to have an Execute, you know? What do you think, DJen?
Yeah, Zom and I were doing some sims probably 2 weeks ago, and his finding was we could drop improve Scorch and just emit that whole deal and pick up, like, I think it was Firefall and Firestarter for a net 0 loss. And then if you were doing like a lusted execute, it was a gain to drop those points because the Scorch issues with the cast times. So I'm hoping that those following talents that are a little bit further down kind of bump up our execute a bit, because I do like us having that niche, because I think it's something that sets us slightly apart from like Arcane or Frost, even though Arcane has pretty decent execute. And I think with the profile that we've kind of developed in the last expansion, we need a niche, because we're kind of losing that since like Burst Fire has gone away.
Yeah,
I think it would be really cool if they actually beefed up Scorch and improved the cast time on it, so it wasn't such a detriment to haste stacking, which is everything else in Fire's kit. It's kind of hard committed on that, right? And then you have Scorch that's kind of like immediately capped the moment you get a little bit too much haste, and it all of a sudden becomes a problem with how hot streak generation works, right? So it's definitely, I personally would like to see like a 2-second cast time and a higher coefficient on Scorch, so that it's, you know, both a more meaningful spell to have during execute and kind of meteor on its own. That way it kind of carries that execute damage problem, right?
yeah. One thing I brought up on the last show was like whenever we had the belt legendary in Legion, it made Scorch do I think 350% increased damage, which was good, but it didn't affect Kindling then. And then now it affects Kindling, but the damage is way lower. It doesn't feel like we've had both at the same time. But now, even if you were to get the 300% damage talent, like you cast Scorch like so much. With everything else going on now, you like just do not cast as many Scorches as you like would have cast then. And I just think like that is probably going to hurt this Down in Flames talent the most. And that's actually a reason why I'm surprised Improved Scorch isn't that good, because like it still works if you're casting Scorch infrequently. Like it's only 1 every 12 seconds essentially. So I'm quite surprised that that's like as bad as it is.
I just did some quick math while Porum was talking there, and with Temporal Warp going away, we're going to lose a lot of that like friction where Scorch is dropping below the GCD. So like I'm going off Sun Fury because that's one I like. The max haste you can get from Sun Fury is 10 stacks, 2% per stack. So that's 20%. Yeah, 20% math. So assuming season 1 gear around that 20 to 24% haste, like we were this expansion, and a lust, we will be just below that threshold. We'll be at like 93, 94% haste. So season 1 will be okay if we're doing like a lusted execute. Moving in later into the seasons, season 2, we're at that like 30 to 34% haste mark. We're going to start hitting those weird Scorches again, where we want to like fireball if we were in a lusted execute. So I think it needs... I don't know about 2 seconds, maybe like a 1.5 second, because that would keep it just above the GCD. So maybe like a 1.75 second cast time and a small spell power modifier buff. I think that would be good.
Make it 1.54 like Arcane Blast, so you can hit it at 104% haste instead of 100.
Oh yeah, perfect.
Yeah.
I think the interesting thing too, you bring up Sun Fury. I was thinking about Frostfire and how many more Frostfire bolts you're gonna be putting out instead of Scorch during execute, and it kind of makes the the Down in Flames talent even worse, to your point, Toe, right? Like there's so many casts that aren't going to be Scorched that talent's just not going to have any impact on.
Oh yeah, that's an interesting thing as well. Like you don't even want to cast Scorch at all if you're Frostfire, or just make Scorch a Frostfire
normally
spell.
Fireball, right? It's Scorch takes the place of Fireball during execute, and I don't think you're going to have room to do that with Frostfire Bolt.
That's actually a really good point. I had not considered. That's going to be really cringe for anyone that likes Frostfire.
Yeah, okay, we've broken it already.
So Blizzard, if you're listening, we need a solution, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, moving across the tree. On the right-hand side, we have Surging Blaze. This is quite similar to what's on live today. It's exactly the same, in fact. And then moving down, so Living Bomb has been reworked. So there is no Living Bomb active, as far as I know anymore, assuming it's not baseline. All of the Living Bomb stuff
is... It's not to my knowledge.
Yeah, so all of the Living Bomb stuff is now procs based on different things. So right now it's a proc whenever you consume Hot Streak. You get a Living Bomb proc called Lit Fuse, and whenever you Phoenix Flames, up to 3 targets hit by that Phoenix Flames turn into a Living Bomb. And then it basically just does what Living Bomb does today, except it's target capped. The spread is target capped, so I'm assuming it AoEs everything, but only 5 enemies will get a new Living Bomb.
Yeah, the AoE will be square root target capped, so pretty heavy diminishing returns on that, and then 5 target baseline spread with up to 8 with talents.
That's interesting. I was hoping the square root would go away since it's not quadratic scaling anymore. It does have a cap, so I thought they would turn it into a normal target cap, but I guess we just have to see how Chinning plays out on it. Any thoughts on Living Bomb for him? Oh.
I'm just not really a fan of removing the button. I liked hitting Living Bomb in BFA and in Legion when I first became a mage, and doing, the what was the dungeon in Asuna?
Eye of Ashara.
Yeah, where you just grabbed all the crabs and seagulls, right, and you just blew them up in one cast, and it was brilliant, right?
Yeah.
They've neutered the spell every expansion, right? It's kind of taken a hit or fallen behind other spells, and that's sad. And I think it's good that they're looking for a new identity for it in that regard. But I don't know how I feel about it being something that you don't actually interact with, right?
Yeah. DJN, you want to go ahead there? You want to say something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, based on the alpha tuning, it is very underpowered currently. So to your point, I wouldn't mind seeing it go back to that quadratic formula where it could just nuke everything in sight. Another thing I'm not a big fan of, in their stated intentions for this rework, it was diminishing those procs and buffs you have to track. This is another proc that you're going to be... I don't think you're going to be tracking it, but in a min-max angle, it's something you could, because it's a controllable consume. Your next Phoenix Flame is going to be proccing that Living Bomb. So let's say, you have ads spawning in 5 seconds. You might want to hold that Phoenix Flame for a little bit of extra pad. And along with some other things further down the tree, there is a lot going on, even more than we currently have, which I know overwhelms some of the newer mages.
Yeah, it's interesting going on that point about, obviously there might be more changes to come, but that point about they wanted to remove buffs and tracking. As far as I can tell, they've removed Firemind, which was basically a passive buff, and they've added several more buffs to track. So I think our net buffs have gone up in these first set of changes.
I think that's going to come down to the Scorch choice node tuning, because if you drop Improved Scorch, that is one less to track. But as it stands right now, we just gained a ton of stuff. That's all going to be weak aura dependent, so have fun.
It's even funnier with Improved Scorch too, right? Because it's only a buff you track on 30% of the fight. You know what I mean? It's not even something that you always track or always need to play around either. Whereas Charred Embers is something you're definitely going to want to pay attention to, right?
Yeah, for sure. I did also notice you can get through the first gate without taking Firestarter and have reasonable talents, because you could take a Surging Blaze and Scorch, and then the two talents you don't have are Lit Fuse and Firestarter. So that kind of works.
Problem is you're giving up crit mass doing that, right? And that's going to be...
Oh!
No, you get to crit mass from the Call of Sun King.
Yeah, it has a little line down here.
Oh, okay. I'm blind.
So yeah, that might be an option. Let's try that. Let's keep going with this sort of. Guess let's build out as we go. So the Scorch talents, we kind of already talked about these. Let's try and avoid them by now because we don't like them. So Flame On and Critical Mass for some reason have swapped places, even though you'll always take them both. Flame On does the same thing as Live, except it's a 1-pointer. Oh, okay, here's an interesting thing. Whenever I was talking about Fervent Flickering, I knew there was something somewhere. So Flame On reduces your Fire Blast cooldown by 2 seconds. So these two talents together make current Flame On. So this is not really a 1-pointer, I guess. But it's just something to point out. Actually, Fire Blast cooldown is going to be the same as it is on Live. And Critical Mass is slightly worse. It's 10 and 5% instead of 15 and 10. Let's say we're taking that. So if we go to the left-hand side of the tree, Controlled Destruction is now damaging a target with Pyroblast, increases the damage it receives from Ignite by 2%. Sure. Is my thoughts there.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we have
I guess that's another thing to track, right? Just kidding.
I won't be tracking it. I'm sure there's weekly packs.
But you have to admit too, it is funny that they remove a buff that you didn't track and added a debuff that you don't track now too. You know,
yeah.
Kind of tit for tat. I just think of like somebody who's just coming to WoW and they play Fire Mage and they're like, yeah, cool, I want to blow shit up, right? And then they hit a button and there's like 8 buffs they get and like 6 debuffs on the mob. You know, just a very confusing feedback loop there.
Yeah. It also means those demonic weak aura packs that people download that just track every buff unnecessarily now have another thing in them.
And then you have 15 FPS and you come complain to the fire channel.
Yeah. Okay. Alexstrasza's Fury and From the Ashes. I'll go over these real quick. Alexstrasza's Fury does the same thing today, except it also buffs Dragon's Breath's damage. I was kind of hoping they'd move away from Dragon's Breath being a DPS button, but I guess here we are. And From the Ashes increases mastery by 2% for each charge on cooldown. And it does the exact same thing as today, I believe. Yeah. Any thoughts on this choice node, DGen?
Especially with what we're seeing later with the tier 30 set being baked in, essentially, at least in single target. Actually, probably in AoE too. I think From the Ashes is going to remain a dead talent. It doesn't feel good to play. Because you have to spend in order to gain that buff. So by the time you're getting to the end of your combustion, you have that full power. Especially in their stated intentions, they want Ignite in especially Mythic Plus to not be the go-to playstyle. They want it to not excel at that large AoE while doing priority. So getting a more mastery buff. Mastery is going to be a very weird stat for us because they're going to have to tune it high for low target counts via, I'm assuming, Intensifying Flames, but then neuter it for AoE somehow. So I don't like that From the Ashes even survived this rework. I think Alexstrasza should just be that talent there, and that's what everyone's going to take anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Alexstrasza's Fury is one of those talents where whenever it's good and you play it, you're like, yes, this is how the spec should work. And whenever From the Ashes is good, you're kind of upset that it's good and you're not playing the other one. I don't think that's really a place you want a choice node to be.
I'm really surprised they left Dragon's Breath on Alexstrasza's Fury. It feels bad to use utility for throughput, right? And it's kind of weird in the fire rotation, especially, right? Because it kind of puts you like, okay, you've got to be 15 yards in or whatever. The old legendary, the Diadem back in Legion, right? It had the extended range on Dragon's Breath, and it made that part of it not as big an issue. And Dragon's Breath was also fire only and wasn't like a utility talent in the class tree, right? So it had kind of a different identity then as well. And yeah, it's just kind of ridiculous that that's there, and then you go back to like WoD Supernova, and everybody was up in arms over mages having a knockback that did damage, or a knock-up rather.
Yeah, I was a big fan of the Dragon's Breath Head and Legion. I think it'd be a good candidate for like even a capstone or something like that. If they want to, I'd rather they didn't go in on Dragon's Breath being a damage spell, but considering that they've seem to be leaning into that more, I think like that would be a good talent to have. If you're going to make it a damage spell, at least make it like one I enjoy using, and not something that I need to walk into melee range on single target to press my AoE CC spell to generate hot streak. I don't think that's a great design.
I don't hate the design purely for the reason that at current tuning, Dragon's Breath is rarely worth the global, like in single target. Playing like Alexstrasza of Fury in this tier set, you can like cheese out another SKB and kind of force it with it, and so that's nice. But the nice part of this is you're not punished for giving up your global in Mythic Plus to do that group CC. You're rewarded for it. It can make it kind of a friction point because I want my Dragon's Breath later so I can get to my next SKB, but at least you're not like punished for giving up the global to help the group.
Yeah. Okay. Moving on, Intensifying Flame, same as live. I think it's the same numbers. Yeah, 3 or fewer, 25% damage, and then we've got Combustion, which we're obviously taking. So the next talent that's been reworked is Flame Accelerant. So this is now every 12 seconds, your next Fireball, Flame Strike, or Pyroblast has 40% reduced cast time. And Zom did confirm for us in the chat that Hyperthermia does consume this. And it does get consumed by Hot Streak, apparently. But I'm assuming that's a bug. Who knows if they'll fix that?
That was kind of my concern earlier when we first brought this up. That might have been off stream, I don't remember, but that's definitely the concerning with the wording of the talent, that maybe that behavior is intended, which would be really crappy behavior to. So I'm hoping that that's just fully unintended, and it's the next casted version of those spells,
Yeah, they have the technology like to do that, obviously, because they have the ability to track when you're activating SKB. So that's something they need to do. Otherwise, I see this as a fully dead talent.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see if they just took Fireball off it and fixed the bugs, because it's one of the. I think it'll end up being one of those talents like if you have it up and you need to Fireball, like you don't have 8 stacks of SKB. You don't really have a choice. You just have to Fireball. Or maybe you Pyroblast, but it's not like a good hardcast Pyroblast versus using an SKB. And like you can't delay it. You don't have like something else you can do. You just have to waste it. I think that's pretty feels bad gameplay. Okay. Anything else on that one?
If they don't change it, you know how we do the Fireball weaving right now if we have too much haste?
Yeah.
We could potentially do a Pyroblast from this proc, and that would be very cringe.
Yeah.
Because I think in-game right now, my Pyroblast is 2.5 seconds, right? Yeah, 2.5. My Fireball is 1.6. 40% off the 2.5 would put it right at that Fireball cast time. So you would just trade out a Fireball for a Pyro for that extra spell power.
Yeah. I guess... Yeah, I was going to say Fireball has a travel time, so it's not quite as screwed as Scorch, but I'd say if you're under the GCD, like, it doesn't really matter.
I mean, if you have 2 equivalent spells as far as cast time goes, you just take the one that does the bigger damage, right?
Yeah, depending on how far under you go. So yeah, lots of things that could potentially go horribly wrong with this talent, so yeah, please fix or just delete the talent. Put Dragon's Breath Diadem here. On the right side, after Living Bomb, we now have this increased proc chance, increased damage. This is just going to be like if you're taking Living Bomb, you're taking this. I think Living Bomb is like you basically take all of these talents or none of these talents. I can go through them all. So Living Bomb deals more damage the fewer targets it hits, up to 300% at one target. Flame Strike and Living Bomb apply Mastery Ignite at 100% increased effectiveness. And when Living Bomb expires, if it didn't spread, it reapplies itself to the same target. So these talents seem more about minimizing. So like if you want to play Living Bomb like you're at Mythic Plus, they're just like minimizing the amount of feels bad moments. You know, making it more damage on less targets. If you have to apply it on a boss, reapplying on one target, things like that. Any thoughts here, Porum?
No, I think there's a lot of risk with having these talents only affect Living Bomb, of them becoming, like you said, all or nothing, right? And if Living Bomb isn't tuned appropriately well, then it's going to be nothing. And I don't think it's a great fit for Living Bomb's identity to be not picked for fire.
Yeah, like it's been for a while. Well, I guess technically you pick it a lot right now. How often you cast it is maybe a different a different thing.
It's more of a path, right, to get to talents that matter more, and those kind of designs never really work well. And to be honest, there's enough ideas out there that there don't really need to be fire talents that don't do anything. And yeah, some of these I'm concerned they're just not going to do enough with Living Bomb, and it'll be ending up very much like you have it talented right now, where everything beneath Living Bomb is just empty.
And with the way they're structuring this tree, because it is a wide tree, like this is one of the widest trees I've ever laid eyes on. If you're like really committing to that Flame Strike and Living Bomb play style, you're going to be giving up a not insignificant amount of single target damage. It's going to be like a very split dynamic in Mythic Plus. Like if you want to lean into that AoE, which their stated intention was you're going to be using Living Bomb and Flame Strike, you're going to be giving up a lot of single target, potentially even more than a lot of other classes would be. So it's no longer going to be like Fire Mages, the one key fits all locks. It's going to be, well, I'm a Fire Mage, I can do the AoE, but you guys got to carry the bosses.
Mm-hmm. Another point, kind of outside of PvE, Living Bomb was used a lot in arenas to keep rogues from stealthing and other classes from getting out of combat quicker, and not without having to waste your Fire Blast charges that you're pulling, right, to try and kill with. And that usefulness is now gone, and I definitely feel like that's not going to be a popular decision in the PvP community.
Well, I don't know if you've been following the PvP community, but they just got like a 400% increased damage on Living Bomb. So there is a playstyle currently where you're facing BM hunters or like demo locks with a lot of pets, where you just spam Flame Strike and kill the entire team. It's disgusting, and these talents are going to make that playstyle even more disgusting.
I can't believe you guys are talking about PvP on my stream.
I'm sorry, Toe.
Nah, I love me some raided battlegrounds. Got a lot of time for just two raid groups just butting heads into each other.
I love farming badge.
Yeah, no, I think that. Yeah. Although badge farming did get me into RBGs for a bit. I think I leveled like 6 characters and just got them all to like whatever the highest gear was for RBGs. It's fun.
Yeah, badge farming got me transmog all through BFA and Shadowlands, right?
Yeah. Okay. Flame Patch is now a choice node, which is just Flame Strike deals increased damage. Flame Patch under ideal scenarios does pretty similar damage to Flame Strike, so you'd assume that like it's equivalent to, I guess, 100% increased Flame Strike damage. But I think the fact that like that requires optimal conditions, whereas this like just works in a way, probably makes this Flame Strike talent a lot more appealing, especially if you're playing with tanks or that move a lot, or you're doing low content or anything like that. Any thoughts here, DGen?
Yeah, I ran a couple Flame Strike keys just to try to feel it out this Faded season. And I want to say my Flame Patch was around like, that 12 to 14% mark of my damage, where Flame Strike was closer to that like 30, 35%. So I think for the majority of players, they're just going to default to that quick flame because it's more front loaded damage. It's more boom boom. It has a lot more synergy. Like if you want to play Minute Mage with the Unleashed Inferno, you'll get like a lot more bang for your buck and just be able to nuke a pack before the flame patch even matters. And you won't have people complaining, the tank pulled it out of my flame patch and now I'm doing 3 DPS.
Yeah.
It's also a quarter more ignite damage too, right? So it's not even like there's still some comparable dot component of that. I think a lot of the time people will do what Degen said, even if the talents are tuned opposite and flame patch is really good and the other one's really bad. I think people will still gravitate towards it for that reason, for like frustration with pug tanks and stuff like that. People definitely let that get under their skin, and we see that a lot in the community of people having that frustration.
Yeah, I do like that if you go into the Alter Time Discord, no matter which spec channel you go into, you'll get, wow, this mage spec, insert spec here, is so dependent on the tank. Play one of the other two. In any channel.
Yeah.
It is
in
interesting.
Fire, it's Flame Patch, in Frost, it's Blizzard, and with Arcane, it's Distance or something, RNG.
It is interesting though that they're doing this rework and they're like splitting flame patch off. On live, we have further talents that like proc living bomb or reduce the cooldown or whatever. I forget. I don't look at those talents based off your flame patch damage. So they're also nerfing flame patch while introducing a competing node, which is an interesting gameplay decision.
Yeah. Flame patch has a chance to living bomb, and then living bomb, those living bomb procs were just the CD of your regular living bomb, which is not particularly useful. It's just in front of Firefall. So yeah.
But in the flame strike builds, you are taking those nodes, so they do come into play, and it's not an insignificant portion of your damage. It's probably like in the 4% range.
Yeah. Okay. Coming down. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, it's fine.
Okay.
We can get through
We're moving on. Yeah, okay. So Master Flame is exactly the same as Life. Yeah, decent talent. Probably not as good as people think it is, but especially after the nerf, but still decent. Usually just if you want to ignite at really high target counts, which is kind of niche, I think, for most players. Wildfire is the same? No?
Slightly nerfed.
Slightly
1% lower. Yeah.
Bro, I don't even know where Wildfire is on the live tree. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I suppose it's a 1.39. Yeah, 4 and 3. Yeah, which is fine. It's kind of whatever. Just passive buff. So, yeah, here's an interesting one now. So we have improved combustion, which is the same as it is today. 2% extra combustion duration and mastery equal to 75%. So just checking. Yeah, so it's 75% or nothing. There's no like 50% built into combustion. 75% or nothing. And then the other one is spontaneous combustion. Basically gives you all of your fire blasts and phoenix flames whenever you press combustion. Who wants to start with this one?
I hate it, so I'll do it.
Sure, crack on.
So improved combustion, we get that 2 seconds longer in combustion, which ties into like Sun Fury, where your bird is tied to your active your primary combustion duration. So this means 2 seconds longer on your bird being up, 2 seconds longer of it doing cast, 2 seconds longer of you getting like more mana addiction stacks. Compared to spontaneous combustion, which now eliminates that resource pooling requirement, which means like you could really dump if you wanted to right before your combustion and then just reset it all back and still have plenty of resources to get through it. I'm going to go ahead and call it now. I'm relegating spontaneous combustion to the PvP section. I don't think we're going to play it in PvE. I think there's too much synergy with combustion uptime to compete with something that just can be countered with good play and resource management.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I know some people have played on alpha and said like, oh, this feels really good to play, but I mean, if you don't take improved combustion, you're basically just killing one of your stats, and like, there's no way that's like a feasible way forward, right? Especially if you're using like SKB or Unleashed Inferno. So for that reason, I actually don't hate it that much, because I'm like, if they want to construct like an easy mode build, sure. It's never actually going to be, as long as it's never actually good.
That's kind of how I see spontaneous combustion as well. It's kind of the an easier alternative to the rest of the fire gameplay loop, right? It fully foolproofs the combustion entry for people, right? I'm actually sad to see Tempered Flames go. I was kind of hoping that they had some idea when they added that, and like it would eventually bear fruit in some kind of weird pyro spam build or something, and it just never did anything. And so I'm okay with it going, but I'm a little bit sad to see it go.
Porum, I will tell you, when we were doing the PTR for the first fire rework, Brunstead, one of the Chinese fire mages, I believe, he did this whole tempered flame video, and I tried to do his rotation that he was doing in it, and it was the hardest rotation I've ever played for fire. I am very happy it's dead. I'm very happy it's gone. That was miserable.
So naturally, he was executing it 100% flawlessly, right?
Oh, the dude's insane. But I'm very happy it's gone. I lived in fear for the day that it became a relevant talent.
Yeah.
I just think it's cool when Blizzard tries to break the mold, right? And tries to do something different and throw a wrench in the pot.
Break the mold is like, instead of pressing these 2 buttons, just press this 1 button instead.
No, but just thinking of like a different kind of play style, right? Not necessarily. Obviously, it needed more pieces to make it coherent, but it was like the start of something, right?
I think it was their first attempt at like a beginner-friendly fire mage build, but I don't think they took into consideration how degenerate it can become very quickly.
Yeah. I also think they're overrating the amount of difficulty that is removed by just replacing one filler spell with another filler spell. You're just kind of saving a keybind, not really making the spec that much easier. Fire, for how difficult it is, doesn't have a lot of keybinds as well. But yeah. Okay, moving across. Oh, you don't want to say one more thing?
I would just say we did skip one talent that changed over on the left, the controlled destruction.
Yes, damaging a target with Fire Blast increases the damage it receives from Ignite. I think I skimmed it. Did you want to say anything on? Did any of you want to say anything on this talent?
Oh, I was just going to say it further diminishes our like execute niche, I guess, because on live it's above 70, below 30. You get that small damage boost to Pyroblast. So going back to like our whole Scorch rant, we lose just that tiny bit more of execute.
Yeah, I definitely think this is like, I look at this talent and just think, yeah, whatever. But I definitely think it's a downgrade on the current control destruction on live, for sure. Okay, Feel the Burn. Now up to 6 seconds. They're just slowly making this talent easier, and every time this talent gets changed, it's like, let's try and make it easier. It's gone from 3 seconds up to 5, and then now Phoenix Flames, and now from 5 seconds up to 6, which I guess I don't mind. We're getting dangerously close to me not tracking this on my UI though.
I looked at a few logs of people that have the tier 30 set already, and you can chill at 3 stacks of Feel the Burn the entire time if you play like that very aggressive PF style that 4G popularized in season 2. You're basically just sitting at full stacks of Feel the Burn the entire raid boss.
Yeah. Which,
so an extra second makes it, that much more passive, and who cares? It's boring.
Yeah, it does enter. It starts to get into that realm where, like, okay, if this becomes passive enough, just get rid of it. Or
alternatively, replace it with Infernal Cascade from Shadowlands. Give me more burst.
Yeah, I did like Infernal Cascade. I didn't like that activate combustion early during your fireball cast, just so you can stack Infernal Cascade twice before you cast a spell. It's a bit degen.
Throw an ICD on it.
Yeah, there's definitely things that could be done here.
It's slowly becoming Firemind, right? Like, you hit the same button to generate it, and it's just slowly transforming into that.
Yeah. Okay. We've covered all the Living Bomb talents, so let's go down to Fevered Incantation is the same as Live. It was one of our two pointers in the tree. Kindling, the same as Live. Oh, before we go down here, actually. Were you going to say something there, Parham?
I was saying Fevered Incantation doubled in points now. You have to spend 2 points on it.
Oh, yeah. But it's 2 points for like twice the effect, right? Yeah. So like if you were to put 1 point in it now, it's like the same as 1 point on Live, but you can put a second point in to make it twice as good.
Yep, that's what it looks like. But the nice thing is it's a passive that we're not going to track anyway, so who cares? It's free damage. It
does put more damage in Combustion if that's something we like, which I think is something we like. Just slightly. Give me back 5% on Fevered Incantation and up to 25% when it's 5 stacks. That's what I need. Need that back. Yeah, one thing I wanted to say is, so we're at the next gate here in the tree. We need 20 points, and I've been trying to like avoid situational talents, right? But I'm at 16 talent points out of 30, and I guess we need 4 more, which probably means that we do need to take a Scorch talent. I don't know, let's say we take this one. And then we probably need to take control destruction. Like out of these remaining talents, you're basically only skipping 1 talent, assuming you want to. Let's say we're on a single target raid boss, and we don't want to take any of these AOE talents down the right. It basically means in this entire tree, you're picking 1 talent not to take. Because like if I was to do this, like that lets me down, and I'm skipping Firestarter. But this kind of seems like a problem. Like on a single target raid build, there's 1 talent that you can change. Doesn't seem great. I guess it's not Flame.
It's not great, but if you look at other classes, they're doing a lot more to get like a pure single target. Like I think Boomkins have to like go down like 6 nodes just to get their kick type deal. So I don't think it's the worst thing. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like wasting points. But in a tree as wide as this, it's going to be hard to get that balance.
Yeah. No, to me, it's not about wasting points. It's more like, okay, if you've 20 points to spend in the first 2/3 of the tree, and there's only 21 single target talents, it's just kind of like, what's going on here? Feels like there should be more. I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. Maybe you make some things 2-pointers, like you can maybe add a second point in critical mass or a second point in control destruction again, or something like that. That just gives you a bit more choice, or a bit more variance and a bit more permutations in the tree, I guess.
From a theory crafting perspective, I don't think we need more permutations. This is going to be a nightmare.
Yeah. They'd give up on talents for that reason.
Well, if they keep FA bugged, we won't take that, right? So
yeah,
that frees one up.
If I scream, it's because my cat is attacking me.
That means we're taking this. Okay. Well, anyway, down. So Fevered Incantation, you can buff it up to 16%. That's pretty good. Like the best that Fevered Incantation has been after like the rework in the Middle Legion, I think is 10%. It's 8% right now, but I don't think it's better than 10. 16% is a lot of damage in combustion. I think that's quite good.
Well, so it's critical strike damage. So similar to our tier 3 set from this expansion, it's, you do 200% increased damage when you crit, and then you get an extra 16% of that. So it's not actually like a flat 16% damage buff, because that would be absolutely insane.
Yeah.
But it is a strong talent.
Basically an 8% damage buff during combustion.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good still. Kindling is the same. We're probably taking it a lot. And then Fire's Ire. So whenever you're not under the effects of combustion, your critical strike is increased by 2.5% per point up to 5%. While you're under the effect of combustion, your crit damage is increased by 5%. More combustion damage. Any thoughts here, DGen?
Not really. More damage in combustion, always a good thing. Pack it all in there. We'll take it all.
Yeah. And then there are... I guess we can do these all together, like do the capstone and the one before it together. So this one is casting Combustion grants you Lit Fuse, which, if you missed it earlier, is the thing that procs Living Bomb on your next Phoenix Flames. And Lit Fuse now turns up to 5 targets into Living Bombs, and Living Bombs can spread to 8 enemies. This is initially 3 targets turn into Living Bombs, and it spreads to 5 enemies, so quite a big buff there. Any thoughts here, Porum?
No, I mean, the Living Bomb talents are all kind of, for lack of better terms, kind of bland, right? They all just increase the number or increase the damage. There's not a whole lot of interactivity that you could maybe play around or exploit, right? It's just, here's more damage, here's more targets. One point, backing up a little bit though, Fire's Ire. I actually think that this design is one of the better designed talents for a kind of boring stat increase for Fire, rather than investing crit percentage like Critical Mass does, right? It just adds crit percentage all the time, and then when you combust, it does nothing. This one still provides value in CDs, which is kind of nice.
Yeah.
The problem with it, though, Fire's Eye in particular, is with how wide these capstones are, because we have 7 of them. When I was playing around with the calculator, I had issues pathing over to it after taking the goodies I wanted in my tool bag. So I think the best build I put together had a single point in Fire's Ire. Mm-hmm. I will say the nice part about how they structured this is Living Bomb is completely passive now, proccing off your hot streaks. And yeah, you have to take a lot of points to like beef it up, but you can still do that single target rotation, that priority damage, and proc your Living Bombs for the AoE pad. So there might be some kind of like hybrid build where you take a lot of single targets and then a couple of these to get those Living Bombs, just as like, you know, a little pad on the side on a fight, like, I don't know, Gnarl Root.
Yeah.
I could definitely see that on like Tindril too, right? I think
Tindril
would be a really good fight for that. You just pop Combustion right at the root spawn, you get your free Living Bomb proc right away.
Yeah. Okay. Moving over, I guess I'm going from right to left. So we have Meteor, same as Live. Deep Impact, which is the same as Live, and Firefall, which is also the same as Live. No. Yes. Yes. All these talents are the same as Live. One thing I pointed out before we started was there's a few times where you have like some of these pre-capstones go into like 1 capstone, but there are 2 that go into 2, which is Meteor and Charring Embers. And you do have enough talent points to take both, if that's what happens here. But for both of them, 1 is single target and 1 is AoE. So there's not that many scenarios where like you actually want to exploit that, which is going to be kind of annoying. Sorry, go ahead, DJ.
So Wowhead has the tooltip on Firefall wrong. This is the Live tooltip. In their rework, it's going to be proccing off 30 Living Bomb explosions, I think, was their stated intention. Unless I'm just full of shit. That could be a possibility.
Ah, okay, right. I don't even know where I would look for that right now. Maybe someone in the chat can confirm. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was from the data mining.
If that is the case, then both of these are AoE, which is fine. Meteor's in this really weird spot where... Or no. Yeah, so this is AoE, and then this is single target, and that's kind of annoying. I really don't like Deep Impact. Like, the fact that the spell is better without you taking it in like most scenarios is maybe something that Blizzard just have to work with and possibly just add the CDR to this talent.
Yeah, Deep Impact, since its like inception, has never been picked. I'm not a fan of it. And just based on like current tuning of Meteor, I don't see that changing in the future. Because Meteor is so incredibly strong in AoE, they kind of like rein it in a little bit for those single target, and I don't think 20% is ever going to be enough for it to become relevant. So I'm just not a fan of it.
Yeah. just remove the split. Like, it is a capstone after all. Like, it should be good, and our capstones today suck other than Sun King's Blessing. So, like, make a good capstone and just, if it's too good, you can just nerf it down the line, right? But I don't see a reason for the splitting.
On the bright side,
go ahead.
I would say on the bright side, it's no longer like that super weird pathing where you had to go through Conflag to get to Meteor to get to like Deep Impact if you wanted to go that route. So now it's just kind of there if you want it, and if you don't, you don't have to take it.
I feel like overall, a lot of these capstones are kind of lackluster. Like none of them seem, outside again of Fiery Rush and SKB UI choice, right? The same kind of stuff we have right now that's exciting is the same stuff that's going to be exciting in the War Within with this, I think. Especially like looking across the board, right? You have Hyperthermia, which has historically a ton of problems associated with it. Majesty of the Phoenix, which is, it might be kind of a cool talent, right? Investing in Phoenix Flames and Flame Strike, and maybe that has some rotational interesting things going on, right? But then you have the tier the season 2 4-piece, you have Deep Impact, you have Firefall and Blast Zone, and like none of those really scream to me excitement at all, right? Like I think of SKB and I'm like, I don't necessarily like the defining gameplay that it has, but it's at least defining gameplay, right? Whereas a lot of these, I feel like they're just going to be kind of whatever. Except for that, I think in the season 2 4-piece, I can see having some impact, right?
Yeah, just to go back on it, the Firefall changes were not in the Blizzard post. They were in the data mine changes, but apparently not in the Blizzard post. So whether they're just implementing that in a later build or they're rethinking it remains to be seen.
Well, that will be interesting because Firefall is very strong, as we've seen the last 2 tiers.
Yeah. Another thing, I was just looking at Fevered Incantation and Fire's Hour, and so Fevered Incantation is essentially 8% damage and combustion when fully stacked. Fire's Hour is 5% increased damage and combustion, or is this 2.5%? Critical strike damage increased by 5%, so it's essentially 2.5%. Okay.
2.5.
Right. Okay. So Fevered Incantation is still probably better, the better of the two.
Yeah, almost certainly. That might be a big limiting factor for those Living Bomb talents, right? Is the down or upstream talents you have to take to get there, just night and day between Spontaneous and Fire's Ire.
To one of your earlier points, Sporum, Fiery Rush is one of the most insane rotationally altering talents that we have because it's during combustion 50% faster generators. That would make a great capstone, in my opinion. Where it is now, it's a mandatory pathing. If they were to move it, delete Hyperthermia. Perfect. Delete Hyperthermia, put Fiery Rush where Hyperthermia is. That would be a rotationally impactful talent choice.
Yeah.
Oh, and I don't know if it's showing it right, Toe, but also Sun King's Blessing did get the stack nerf, right? So you have to go to 10 now instead of 8. And yes, Unleashed Inferno got Flame Strike added.
Yes. I was gonna
damage and combustion CDR got changed.
Yeah, I'll just show those on the screen for people. So Sun King's Blessing is now 10 hot streaks instead of 8. And Unleashed Inferno it affects Flame Strike now, but it's weaker than it is for your single target spells. 25% damage and 0.25 per target hit. So up to 1.25. So really it's just half the damage buff. I'm just reading Unleashed Inferno and I'm like, how is this talent not good? Like it do 50% more damage in combustion, and this talent is not. Is so much worse than Sun King's Blessing.
I've ran a ton of sims. I am a firm Unleashed Inferno believer. I love Minute Mage. Everything about that I love. In current live build, Unleashed needs to be a 75% damage buff with its current CDR, or 100% with the CDR component removed in order to be competitive with Sun King's Blessing, because Blizzard had a wonderful idea of combining two of our most powerful talents, Sun Kings and Pyroclasm, into the same talent, making it worth 40% of our current damage.
Listen, I'll take the L on that one. I suggested a lot to Blizzard that they should do that, and every time I was like, but you'll need to nerf it because they're both really good now, and then they just combine them without nerfing it. And I was like, well, what can you do?
So they're nerfing, like...
Ironically, Clasm would also make a good capstone talent.
Yes, it would. And like the nerf to Sun King's Blessing, so you have to get 10 stacks now before you can activate. That's actually a significant like rotational impact. Like I was in Hopeful stream the other day, and he's like, "Just give me anything I can count to 8, and we're solid." He's like, "I hate Frost. I have to count to 5. Make it 8. It'd be perfect." This is going to break a lot of people's brains. And in addition to that, with current combustion times, we are in combustion for 12 seconds at a time. That is just enough GCDs unhasted to build a full SKB 8 stacks. Moving forward, we're going to be leaving combustion at those 8 stacks and being a little confused because now we have to build 2 more before we can get our pew pew. It's going to be a lot harder to chain those across.
Yeah. Unless it's just not good enough and Unleashed Inferno is better.
We hope so. One thing Unleashed Inferno does need, though, because they did add that flame strike to it, which is great. That's cool. Love that. And I understand why they did it at reduced capacity, because otherwise the MDI nerds would be blowing up entire dungeons. Meteor, not impacted by Unleashed Inferno. Why not?
Yeah, neither's Living Bomb here, right?
It is not.
It's going to be problematic. I feel like any of these things that buff, that like the intent is to buff all your spells, and they just don't. It's like, it's just an obvious, it's a really obvious fix, right?
It's even comical too, right? Because it could just be 50% to all fire spells, right? And it would be a lot more consistent.
Yeah. Including Dragon's Breath for when we're doing that, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, 50% of Dragon's Breath hits for like 30k or something, right? So
better than Scorch.
Overall, yeah.
I haven't paid attention. I don't know how big 30k is right now. All of the values of my UI are percentage. All of the values of my UI are percentages, and every patch I have no idea like what a number is.
So when you hit a boss in raid, does it pop up like 0.1%?
No, I don't have damage text on.
Based.
Don't see anything. Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
So Sun King's Crab Rave.
Yeah. Hopefully this is dead.
Go ahead.
Whenever you were comparing like live in Unleashed Inferno with saying it would need like 75% or 100%, right? With no CDR?
Yep.
Or 75% with CDR to compete with Sun King's Blessing. Was that 8 stack Sun King's Blessing or 10 stack?
It was 8 stacks. I tried running some sims to see how impactful that 10 stack nerf was. I wasn't able to do the overrides, and I didn't want to bug Nori for a stupid question. So I'm not entirely sure how impactful that shakes up the dynamic.
Yeah, because it'd be interesting. Saying that,
if you look, Degen, in the important info thing and search for SKB, you might find an override in there for when they nerfed it last. I think
it'll do that later
at some point, right?
But did they not buff it last time?
Maybe they buffed it. I don't remember. But either way, if there's an override, it would be in there, right?
I'm pretty sure it's been 8 since its inception. It was just bugged to hell.
They buffed something with it, because I remember in Shadowlands we looked at it after the buff and was like, oh, this is the best legendary now, and then realized, oh wait, it was actually the best before the buff. We just didn't know. Yeah,
it was 5 hot streaks in Shadowlands, and then it went up to 6, and then 16, and then 12, and then it's been 8 since Dragonflight, or since 9.02. So it had a lot of beta changes.
There's no way it was 5.
That was like super early. I want to say it was like
build.
I want to say it was bugged in Shadowlands where you needed to actually get 9, and then they fixed it in like 0.2 or something, and that's when it actually became relevant.
Yeah, there's something
and then
like
in 0.5 it went from 12 to 8 in 9.05. That's when we like picked it up, right?
Yeah, there was something like if you queued the hot streak or something, it like didn't consume right away. So like, yeah, you technically needed 9 stacks. But yeah, die SKB die. I actually don't mind SKB now that we've lost a lot of other crap, but now that we've got like more maintenance buffs in this tree, I might hate it again. I'll need to play it to find out. Give us alpha, please, Wizard.
I would like it a lot more if it just wasn't the only option, right? Currently, it's like Siphon Storm or Glacial Spike, where it's tuned so heavily over every other option that you just don't really have a choice, right?
Yeah.
I really like Sun Kings in Mythic Plus. I think it's a really great damage profile for that, because always having that consistent damage for every pack is great, especially in Pugs where you don't have that coordination. But in Raid, especially, I just love like the niche that you provide with the 1 minute bust.
Yeah, you mean like the sort of Castle Nathria kind of playstyle?
Yeah, Minute Mage is my favorite version of Fire.
Yeah, I like it too. Okay. Anything else that we want to complain about SKB before we move over? Okay. Charring Embers. Same as live, 6%, 14 seconds. Sounds like post buff. I don't have tier set on live yet. But yeah, so Charring Embers applies a debuff that makes you do more damage. And then whenever you hit someone with that debuff 20 times, next 2 Phoenix Flames refund a charge and deal triple damage. So 2 set, 4 set live. I think this is okay. I think the Alexstrasza's Fury Force SKB very rarely cast playstyle is like, it's one of those playstyles that I think is fun for a tier set, like you do it for a season, but like I don't want to do that all the time. So I'm not sure how I feel about this. Like, I think it's a good tier set, but I don't know if it's a good talent unless they were to significantly nerf it. Like, yeah. Thoughts here, DGen?
I've said my thoughts on this tier set a lot. I think it's very fun, but like you said, short term, it does add a lot of like rotational complexity, especially if you want to start like doing like the aggressive play style that some people like. But I think it really hinders like the resource management aspect of it. It adds a lot more to track, especially for like new mages. And there's a lot of Phoenix Flame based procs that are going to happen in this tree, where it's going to make that maintenance kind of like push and pull, where you're trying to spend your Phoenix Flames to maintain it, but then you also get this proc on the back end, or it procs Living Bomb, and there's just a lot going on with Phoenix Flames that is going to make it kind of awkward, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think you want to. Yeah, you don't want spells to play too many roles because they get in the way of each other. You don't want spells having no roles either. So that is something they'll have to figure out as well with this tree.
Okay, just off the top of my head, Sun Fury, your burden to power is tied to it. Your Living Bomb procs off Phoenix Flames, or your next one. Majesty of the Phoenix, I think your next 2 flame strikes are reduced cast time from it. There's a lot going on with Phoenix Flames.
Yeah, I was trying to.
I actually really dislike the Majesty of Phoenix, particularly where it's located in the tree is my biggest issue, because it's located in a very single target centric spot in the tree, and it's completely an AoE talent, right? It has no use in single target, and so I'm afraid it's just gonna sit there and never get picked.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that.
Yeah, same. I think if they maybe swapped, I guess they can't really swap Deep Impact. If they put Meteor on the left side of the tree, then put like Deep Impact, and I guess having Phoenix Reborn after Meteor doesn't really make sense. But maybe trying to put Majesty of the Phoenix and Firefall like on the same side of the tree might make a little bit more sense.
I actually think it would make a lot of sense too to just swap the triangle there with Charred Embers, Majesty, and Phoenix Reborn with the triangle of Meteor, Deep Impact, and Firefall, right? That way you can go up the AoE side of the tree, and then you get the Living Bomb talents, you get the Flame Strike talents, right? Everything kind of builds on itself to kind of have an AoE powerhouse if you want it.
Yeah, agreed. It's a okay talent, but a little bit out of place.
It's just like super weird because like you're in combustion, you spend your Phoenix Flame. Do I sit here and hardcast a Flame Strike now? Like I don't like this one. I do like Ashen Feather though. That's a great band-aid for Phoenix Flame.
Oh, I was sitting here thinking, like, I forgot Flame Strike's cast times nonsense. I was sitting here thinking this would make them instant, but it doesn't make them instant. It just makes them really quick. Okay, I really don't like this talent.
Yeah, if it made them instant, kind of like the Freezing Winds talent for Froststrike, that would be pretty cool, I think. I think that would be a lot more of a easier pill to swallow.
Yeah. So Ashen Feather's a weird talent, because to me, you want talents like this for spells that feel bad to press on single target, like the way we have Convection and Focus Fury for Living Bomb. You kind of, if you're in a dungeon, you've got Living Bomb, you don't want to feel bad pressing it. But Phoenix Flames has such a role in the rotation anyway, that like it doesn't feel bad to press in single target. Like it feels good and it has a clear role. So I'm like, what's the point of this?
I think I disagree with you. I think Phoenix Flames feels absolutely horrendous to press, and a lot of the reason it doesn't feel bad right now is that tier 30 set, because you're like getting the buff Phoenix Flames, you're getting the debuff rolling. But as a baseline spell, Phoenix Flame, slow travel time, clunky, bugs out, does very little damage. It's just not like a good spell.
But if you're never going to take this without taking the spells that or the talents that turn Phoenix Flames into a spell. And once you've turned it into a spell, you don't need this. Is kind of what I mean. Like if you don't take Alexstras's Fury, Charring Embers, like Phoenix Reborn, like I doubt you'll take this. And so like, if you get me, like the scenarios you'll take it, it doesn't do anything. Unless it was like somewhere else in the tree. Maybe if it was like early on in the tree, it'd be different. But like here, I do agree that like Phoenix Flames is buggy, like bad as a spell without the talents.
I think that like this is just like them further trying to reinforce that like dichotomy of Fire Mage. You're either an AoE specialist or you're a single target specialist. I think that's why there are these two nodes, and I think that's healthy to some extent. So I don't hate the talent. I do kind of like it.
Yeah, I feel like there's better ways to achieve like single target versus AoE talents. Like something like this, I think, is like a bad way because it's very binary. Like you're on one target and this talent does what it's supposed to do. If you're on AoE, this talent does literally nothing. And I think there are like better ways to achieve like single target versus AoE balance. You know, like something like Meteor is very powerful on AoE, but like if you're on single target, like you know, a pure single target build on live today might not take Meteor, but like if you're in a dungeon, you have to cast it on single target, it doesn't feel that bad. And I think that's maybe better talent design than something as binary as Ashen Feather.
I feel like
we'll see how it plays out.
I feel like it's kind of a boring talent. I feel like it's not going to change anything you do, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's also in a node position where it's like isolated. It doesn't lead to anything important that you want. It doesn't prevent you from taking other options, really. So it's really going to be like something, I think, where if it sims better, we'll all take it. And if it doesn't, we won't. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's also made me realize that the tree is not symmetrical because there's a talent. It's either not supposed to be here or there's a talent missing here on the other side.
Well, look up at the first gate where you have Surging Blaze, and then on the other side there's nothing.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Yeah. Get Ashen Feather up here. Fixed.
Or just center it all.
Yeah. Now that I'm thinking, Ashen Feather earlier in the tree might not be that bad, because we were talking about earlier how you don't have that much choice early in the tree once you start factoring in the gates if you're not going into a lot of the AoE talents. So, yeah, it might be a decent one to move earlier in the tree. But okay, 2 talents left. Pyromaniac. This isn't in the game right now, right?
No,
Correct.
There's not even anything data mined for it as far as I know. So it's just fully nothing.
No, it's data mined, and the tooltip here is correct. It's just not yet implemented.
Yeah,
Isn't this the same it was?
So currently on...
Okay, I misread. Sorry.
It's the same as it was last time it was in the game, which must have been Shadowlands?
So, Pyromaniac is currently in the game. The current tooltip is casting Pyroblast or Flame Strike while Hot Streak is active has an 8% chance to instantly reactivate Hot Streak. So it's a reactive spell where you have to send it and then immediately consume it again, or you munch. This version of it, it's just going to echo your damage. Like it's just going to toss another Pyroblast or whatever out.
Oh, okay.
So it doesn't like interrupt your rotation. It's another very passive spell, but it's a lot better than what we have in the current tree.
Yes, I was looking for Pyromaniac there. It's on the same note as the Ignite buff guy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
like 100% effectiveness. Like that shit's definitely getting nerfed. I also think of like niche stuff, right? Where you send out a fireball, this procs, and you go to hit Fire Blast and you've munched, right? Because your fireball procced, and you know what I mean. That's how create some interesting issues.
That's how it works on live. This version, it won't contribute to your hot streak or heating up, but it will contribute to like Sun King's Blessing stack because it counts as consuming a hot streak, but it does not contribute to them.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure about contribution. Sorry.
Do we know that for sure?
That was stated somewhere. I don't fucking know where. That might have been data mining again.
I'll believe you. I was thinking like if it did contribute, it would be fine because like let's say you went Fireball, Pyroblast at the end. This procs, like all 3 spells should hit at the same time. So you'll either have nothing, a heating up, or a hot streak, regardless of whether it contributes or not, which would be fine. But yeah, I mean, it's passive. I don't think this is like a true passive. Like if you're playing with SKB and, you know, it helps you, it's essentially a double stack proc. Like I don't think that's like, it's not passive in the same way that like Wildfire or Firemind are passive that you completely ignore. So I think this is good. It's a better implementation.
Yeah, I mean, it's like 3 procs a minute, right? If you're casting GCD level spells, so that's actually really good.
Yeah, no, 8% is very nice. I'm a big fan of it, especially if we're playing in SKB style with the 10 stacks. This would be a very nice like buffer towards that nerf.
Yeah. They nerf SKB, they buff Unleashed Inferno, Sun Fury Tree. It's like, all right, guys, this is it. It's Unleashed Inferno's time. And then it's like, nope, here's these talents to buff Sun King's Blessing. Okay. And last, and probably least, we have Hyperthermia, which is the same as it is on live. So whenever you don't have Combustion up, whenever you consume Hot Streak, you have a low chance to cause all Pyroblasts and Flame Strike to have no cast time and be guaranteed crits. We're still doing this apparently.
Yeah. It's wild that that this rework isn't saying, all right, Hyperthermia gives you combustion instead of what it is, which doesn't contribute to your mastery or you know, proc ignite, or rather the bonus ignite, right?
Yeah. Well, it proccing combustion I think would be even worse, because whenever you're playing with TA and combustion procs, you might not have Fire Blasts, or maybe you don't want to use your Fire Blasts. Whereas with this, at the very least, you don't actually have to like spend anything. You're just like mash Pyroblast until the buff is over. But I don't know.
Yeah, but I mean,
it's very
both,
dated,
right?
Yeah. That is true.
I hate it purely because of how good it is in the Sun Fury tree, where it's predictable. It's the version that's in the talent tree is just very antiquated and needs to die. Also, side note, I have some math from Norner and Zamaros on the 10 stack. So on the current profile, it is a 7.4% nerf, increasing it to 10 stacks. UI is currently, I want to say, 11%, 11 to 12% behind. So this is not an insignificant gap closer.
Yeah, that's quite spicy. I guess it's enough stacks that like breaking the combustion chain just like really nerfs the talent, which is probably good.
All this kind of just for fun data, because the tree is changing so massively and there's the hero talents added on. This could swing wildly in either direction, but
not to mention temp warp.
Yeah, temp warp dying. But on the backside of that, we have mana addiction, which is just now you always have temp warp. Have fun, 20% haste.
Yeah, I always thought like hyperthermia would be like a cool thing for Sun King's Blessing. Like if Sun King's Blessing give you hyperthermia instead of combustion, and then combustion was just like combustion, But yeah.
Hyperthermia is one of those talents where when it works and you get the procs, it is the best feeling thing in the world. I have a clip from the PTR where I was just machine gunning pyros for 32 seconds straight, and it was amazing. But then you also have those pulls where you don't get a single hyperthermia proc the entire time, and you just want to cry in a hole.
Yeah. Do you guys remember this was it was a tier set back in BRF, I think. But it was a legendary whenever it was a legendary in Shadowlands beta. Was it called Firestorm then? Or something like that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Or well, technically not in Shadowlands beta. It was technically a legendary when Shadowlands came out as well. Would you believe it? But before it was nerfed and before people knew that? So yeah, a lot of people crafted it. But before people
available first week, right? Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and our good legendary wasn't, because our good legendary dropped from a world boss. It wasn't up until week 3 or something. Mm-hmm. But I remember like streamers going into Halls of Atonement, going right, just pulling everything down to the end, line of sighting it, and then just like doing that until Firestorm procced, and just doing like quadruple the group's damage, and then just going out, resetting the key, and then just going down again. And it's like there's obviously some fun here in this buff, but how they're executing it is just not right. I do think it does need to be something controllable.
I view Fire as a very meticulous, very planned out spec. Like, when you're entering your cooldowns, what your resources need to be. You're always trying to control those resources. So having like this random proc effect that may or may not happen just always kind of feels bad for me.
I think Forgy had a good suggestion here with hypothermia being a buff that you get, that your next consumption of hot streak or something like that triggers the hypothermia effect. That way you can properly kind of enter it rather than, trying to guess at when it'll proc or not.
Yeah.
I think the way they did it in the Sun Fury tree, where it's exiting combustion triggers this buff, is like my favorite way they could have ever done that. It's very predictable. It's very repeatable. It's happening. You can plan for it, and it just feels good.
It might be cool to tie it to another spell too, like when have it be something underneath Meteor, and when you use Meteor, you proc hypothermia or something like that, right?
That was one of Zom's suggestions was hyperthermia should let you spam Meteor 8 times.
Yeah, because the suggestion you had about like the next hot streak, I think it runs into similar issues with Flame Accelerant, where you're like, okay, well, I'm not ready to enter hyperthermia, but the way my rotation works, I can't put it off. Like, I just need to keep casting my spells, So I think having it on something else would be good. The one I don't like about like going into it straight after combustion is because it's quite similar to combustion. Like I think tying it to something else, I don't know. Like I'd like it tied to Sun King's Blessing, but Meteor would be good too. Out of curiosity, do you know if a 6-second combustion or a 6-second hyperthermia is better? Or like more DPS?
Combustion, because of all the compounding effects.
Okay, I thought so, but I just wanted to make sure because of like having to spend fire blasts and things like that. So like in that case, I definitely think like Sun King's Vest and giving you hyperthermia might be like a good change, and then like combustion is like the cooldown.
That wouldn't be bad. On that note, temporal warp is dead, which means we're locked into time anomaly. So enjoy your 6-second combust, guys.
My bad.
I'm still holding out that they're going to delete time anomaly because it doesn't need to exist without temporal warp. It only needs to exist. And
Toe just pulled up some more numbers from Zom in Ultra Time. So that is on the tier 31 set, so not faded, but previous tier. 2.2% difference with the 10 stack SKB between SKB and UI.
We're almost there, team. We are getting there.
It may just rise up.
To be fair, if you need a burst profile for a specific situation, 2% damage is not a whole lot to give up for a better profile that matches the encounter that you're in.
Yeah. We've actually not had a lot of good bursts. I guess we had Smolderon.
The fact that we didn't play Unleashed on Smolderon is a war crime for the Fire Mage community.
Fire's so dog shit on that boss, though.
Nimue was a really good... It should have been a fight that required Fire Mages to think about UI, right? And it just didn't because the tuning is so far off.
Yeah, Zom did hours of cooking trying to make it work. He was like specking into all these random procs and trying to figure out how he could make it work, and it just sucked.
Yeah, I remember because I got to the boss before Zom did, and I was talking to Zom. I was like, right, what am I doing? And it's like, okay, got all this, and it's like, okay, that didn't work, didn't do any damage. It's like, all right, we'll move these things around, and then like I kept trying things and like looking at logs, and then at the end of the night, I just said to Zom, this spec is dog shit on this boss. Like, do not play it.
Respec Arcane and the boss dies. Weird.
Yeah.
I hate it when any advice is to respec. You know, like you have a problem with Frost snaring things in Sanguine. All right, just go, respec out of Frost, and Fire doesn't have burst, so respec out of Fire, and you know what I mean. Arcane doesn't have sustain in Dungeons, so spec out of that. I wish that they would just kind of make profiles that were a bit more flexible, and generally speaking, I hate flat damage profiles for mages in particular. Like, my concept of a mage is always that glass cannon, that can dish it out and then, has to recharge their batteries for a little bit after.
Yeah. I was looking at bosses this expansion, thinking where would Unleashed Inferno be good. Like, it burst the profiles. I was like, there's not a lot. I was thinking Starkereth, but then I was like, because the haste buff. But then I was like, the haste buff was really good for SKB as well.
All right, Toe. We went a little over your time suggestion, but I think we hit all the talents.
Yeah. I can't believe we considered maybe doing something else in this show. Okay. I guess we said we'd do Q&A. I don't think there's very many questions in chat. Anyway,
the Fire Mage podcast, right?
Yeah. Well, if they keep making fire changes, then what
we will do Frost and Arcane at some point. I promise.
Yeah. Just skimming chat. I don't think there's many questions. Some things we were interacting with as we went along. What's your favorite mage spell from all time, and why is it Cinderstorm from Legion? Oof. That's a rough one.
You have a take on Cinderstorm, Toe?
I do not like Cinderstorm. When we last played it, in Emerald Nightmare?
Somewhere around there.
Oh god, that was so bad.
I think I cast the spell maybe 2 times, so...
No, the best mage ability by far is Alter Time. There's no competing with it.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
Cinderstorm was so bad for people who would pad.
Oh, sorry. Cinderstorm was bad for padding?
No, but whenever you have someone in your raid who loves padding, because they'll sit on Il'gynoth, for example, where you couldn't hit the blobs, they'll sit and they'll aim their Cinderstorm So like it hits the target they're supposed to hit, but like whoopsie, it curved around and hit all these blobs I wasn't supposed to hit. Yeah,
that's pretty good.
Wasn't a fan.
For me, it's definitely Legion Displacement. Definitely one of the most fun spells. It had no range. It had a 30-second cooldown, if I remember right. And you could use it within like 10 seconds of blinking. So like I know you didn't want me to bring up PvP again, but like booking it out there like 150 yards and then just piecing the fuck back after a warrior double leap charges at you it's a very gratifying experience.
Yeah.
Okay, someone in chat said the main problem is the Fire Mage shouldn't be dependent on Aug Evoker or the Priest PI. Let me tell you, you are not dependent on either of those. The Aug is just augmenting your damage profile, which just synergizes really well. The Power Infusion is probably wasted on you and should go on the Demon Hunter or even the tank in some cases. You're not reliant on it. You just like it because it makes you look pretty on the overall. It's probably bad for your key.
I can't complain.
Don't listen to DGen. You are fully dependent on AUG and PI. If you don't get them, you can't do damage. It's impossible.
But who do I complain to get PI if I'm the raid leader already?
You just threaten to bench someone.
Yeah.
All right. Ice flows or shimmer?
Shimmer. No, sorry, ice flows. I don't know why ice flows. Shimmer people are.
I'm a shimmer gamer always.
I think ice flows is superior in 90% of situations, but I am also stupid, so I really enjoy shimmer. Plus, I can vape while I shimmer, which is nice.
Yeah,
I like shimmer for those moments of glory where you don't really have enough reaction time or enough the global up right to like blink into a soak or something like that. I that's always what I live for. So
shimmer's a lot more fun, and you can do those hero plays. But I think like objectively, ice flows is just better, especially with the locked in Sun King's Blessing.
Yeah, I also think with so like shimmer is a 25-second cooldown and blink is a 15-second cooldown. Like there's an argument that blink is better in some scenarios even without ice flows.
Mm-hmm.
And like,
well, that and the stun break built into it.
Oh, don't play PvP, mate.
It's not
PvP.
No, think like what is it? Tendril? Yeah,
Tendril, yeah.
And soon Broodkeeper too this week.
Oh yeah, it's really spicy on Broodkeeper. I love that we can break both of them. We both healing debuffs.
If you had the full power to rework one mage spell in current patch, which one would it be?
I would rework SKB out of existence.
Forum.
Shifting power.
Bold choice.
I think that's my next target after Temporal Warp's confirmed demise is shifting power. I think Fire Mage has enough CDR to work on its own. Frost and Arcane don't really need it as much, and it actually is occasionally disruptive in the rotation and in alignment with trinkets and shit like that too.
Yeah,
I'm gonna meta game. I know that Temporal Warp is already getting removed, so I would pick Time Anomaly and rework it into not being a spell.
Yeah,
rework it into a cauterize prismatic barrier choice node, right?
Yes, sir.
I see when they put up Dragonflight beta, and we had Radiant. I saw Radiant Spark and Shifting Power, and I was like, "Wow, the two worst Covenant abilities, great." The two I didn't want.
I'm probably in the minority. I loved the Venthyr.
Yeah, but Mirrors of the Torment was really good. I liked it.
It was really awkward because of the way it procced, but like the effect that it gave was so satisfying. At the time, at least. Now we're so saturated in Fire Blast that I just could not care anymore. But at the time, it was so great, especially paired with the Mechagon wrist.
Yeah, no, I was a big Mirrors of the Torment fan.
I think the things I miss the most from Shadowlands abilities are definitely the Night Fae and what was it?
Doors.
Called? Brent. Yeah, and Doors. What was it? Doors and
Soul Shape?
Not Fae form. Yeah, Soul Shape. That's what I was thinking of. I love Doors. Doors was especially fun on Mage because you could do a lot of shenanigans because of your cast while casting OGCD Shimmer, as well as alter timing before the door. Like I did a lot of fun stuff on Jailer with that, and on Zymox during Faded.
Yeah. Okay. I said we should aim for 30 to 40 minutes. We're currently at an hour and 40 minutes. So, I mean, I guess we're not worried about running out of content anytime soon. But okay. Are we good to leave it there?
Yeah, I think we covered everything we wanted to, and then some.
Sweet. Thank you all for watching. It's quite late here, so I'll probably not upload this to YouTube until tomorrow morning. But yeah, thank you all for watching. I'll also post about whenever we decide to do the next one. But I assume we'll use this time slot and then decide if we want to do it like a week, 2 weeks. We'll figure that out.